State may call their next witness.
Thank you. Our state would call Agent Joshua Durst. Your Honor, we'll be using the PowerPoint.
Okay. Good morning. Morning. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer unto God, or under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
You may be seated.
Thank you.
All right, it's important that you speak up loud enough so that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury can hear you.
Yes, Your Honor.
That is a microphone. All right, for the record, if you'd please state your name, spelling your last.
Joshua Durst, D-U-R-S-T.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Morning, Agent Durst. How are you?
Good morning. Good, thank you.
Waiting out in the hallway for a little bit.
Oh, what?
Get
Yes.
a little nerves going.
No, I'm fine.
Testified before?
I have.
A couple times?
Yes.
Who are you currently employed by?
I work for the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation.
What do people kind of shorthand that to?
It's BCI for short.
How long have you worked there?
I've been employed with BCI for almost 10 years.
And what did you do before that?
Before that, I worked in the healthcare fraud section of the Attorney General's office. Before that, I worked for Ohio University Police Department as an officer and a detective. Previous to that, I worked at the Muskingum County Sheriff's Office.
And what is your current job title with BCI?
I am a crime scene special agent.
Could you explain what that entails?
Sure. I'm part of a unit, the crime scene unit, that responds to assist local law enforcement with any major type of crime scene that they may encounter. They can call us 24 hours a day. Any day of the year, we're free of charge, and we assist the agency with processing the crime scene, which includes photographs and documenting the evidence and collecting the evidence.
Okay. Do you have a college degree?
Yes, ma'am.
From where?
I have an associate's degree in criminal justice from Zane State College, a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Ohio University, and a master's degree in public administration, also from Ohio University.
And as part of your job, do you take continuing education hours?
I do, yes.
About how many hours do you think you've logged?
Above and beyond, which is what's required as a law enforcement officer in the state of Ohio, a little over 1,400 hours of additional training. A little over 800 of those hours are specific to crime scene investigation.
You said about 800?
Yes.
Do you have any special certifications, say in bloodstain analysis?
I do.
Could you explain to ladies and gentlemen what those are?
Sure. I have 2 independent certifications through the International Association of Identification. One is I'm a crime scene analyst, certified crime scene analyst, and the second certification is bloodstain pattern analyst. I've received both of those certifications. I'm also internally authorized through BCI to conduct bloodstain pattern analysis and shooting incident reconstruction.
You also have a master evidence technician certification?
I am. Yes, I do. I have a master evidence technician certificate as well as a master criminal investigator certificate. Both of those are issued through the Ohio Peace Officer Training Council.
And you kind of got into this a little bit, but does BCI work for a specific police agency or sheriff's office?
No, we're available to any law enforcement agency in the state.
In fact, didn't you get a call last night while we were prepping for today?
I did, yes.
So you can get calls any time of day?
Correct.
From anywhere in Ohio?
Yes.
What kind of scenes are you asked to come out and process?
Primarily, we work homicide investigations, homicide scenes. We conduct a lot of officer-involved shooting cases, questionable deaths, we will assist. Those are the three primary cases we work.
In your career, about how many scenes do you think you've been called out to?
In 10 years, I mean, just a rough estimate, 400 to 500, probably.
So are you like the guys on CSI that you pull up in your van, you've got all these cool things inside of it that light up and all these great tests you can do right there?
Not exactly. We have a lot of equipment, a lot of tools, some of which you do see on CSI, but it's not like that. It doesn't work like that.
Can't get a result in 30 seconds?
Unfortunately, no, we can't.
Okay. Agent, do you work alone or do you have a partner?
It depends. It depends on the case itself. Sometimes we will work independently, and sometimes we will work alongside of another crime scene agent.
Is there any rhyme or reason to if you work with somebody or not?
Generally, it's how detailed, how complicated the scene is, or how much work, how large the scene is. That will dictate if we send 1 or 2 or 3 agents.
So generally, when you approach a scene, what's your process just overall? We'll get into more detail about this case, but overall, what's your process?
Typically, when we show up, we will speak to the investigators and get some understanding of what this case involves and what information they know at the time. Generally, we will do an initial walkthrough of the scene to evaluate what we see and what we have. From that point, we will begin to photograph all aspects of the crime scene itself. So we want to document the scene through photography. From there, the evidence that we encounter somewhat dictate our processes from that point. But we will begin to document, to collect the evidence, inventory it, package it, and then ultimately release it to the requesting agency.
Do you have to treat every scene a little differently?
Yes, yes.
Why is that?
Every scene is unique. Every situation is different, so we rely on our training and our experience to guide us through what processes and procedures we should utilize.
Were you in your current assignment on January 29th of 2018?
Yes.
Were you called out to 3044 Allegheny Avenue, Apartment B, here in Franklin County?
Yes, I was.
Who called you?
I was contacted actually by my supervisor at the time. He was contacted directly by the Columbus Police Department asking for assistance with a death scene.
Do you remember if you arrived in the morning, in the afternoon, or at night on the 29th?
I believe it was early evening when we arrived.
You said you get kind of a summary from the investigator when you arrive. Why do you get that summary?
It just gives us some idea of what we're dealing with, how we're going to approach that, and again, to determine what resources we need and what techniques we're going to utilize.
You say techniques you're going to utilize. Can you explain more about that?
Sure. An officer-involved shooting is something completely different than a homicide investigation. We may need different equipment. We may be looking what may be relevant in that case may not be irrelevant in a homicide investigation. So it just gives us some idea as to what direction we need to go.
Now, when you speak with the investigator, the detective, do they tell you exactly what to do, or do you use your own brain as you're going through the scene?
Yes, we use our own brain. They explain the situation, and then again, with that initial walkthrough, we start making mental notes as to how we want to process and preserve that evidence.
So when you arrived to the Allegheny Avenue address, were the police already there?
Yes, they were.
And to your knowledge, was the scene secured?
Yes, it was.
Do you have any kind of report or narrative when you go out to scenes that you create yourself?
Yes.
Did you do that in this case?
I did, yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Agent, I'm marking you, show you what's marked for identification purposes. It states Exhibit A. Do you recognize that?
I do. This is my investigative report from that scene.
And why do you create these reports?
To memorialize what we've done, our efforts there, our observations, so that other people can see and understand what we did and what we saw.
I'm going to leave this up here with him. Is that okay? Agent, when do you create these reports?
I'm sorry?
When do you create these reports?
As soon as we can, as soon as it's practical after we've completed the scene. It's not immediately after, it's usually a day or two following.
But soon enough to the scene where you can recall the details?
Yes, absolutely.
You said you take photographs when you go to the scenes?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Agent, I'm going to ask you to briefly look through what's been marked A1 through A167. And did we have you look at these last night when we prepared?
Yes.
Okay. And were those all true and accurate copies of the photos you took that day?
Yes.
And were there actually more than 167 photos taken that day?
Yes.
We kind of cut it down a little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
When you're going to these scenes, why do you take so many pictures?
More pictures is good. Sometimes we don't know what's going to be relevant. We don't know exactly what angles and what photographs are going to be important. So in the age of digital photography, it's cheap. We don't have to develop film, so we just take a lot of pictures.
You don't have a crystal ball to see what's going to be relevant later on in the case?
Unfortunately, no.
Do you have permission to publish?
Any objection? You may.
And agent, just to be clear, so you take these photos after you've done your initial walkthrough?
Typically, yes. In this case, that's correct. We did the walkthrough and then we did photos.
I knew it was going to happen.
Once it appears on your screen, then we should be good, but it's not on any of the screens.
It is on our screen.
It's not upon anyone else's, though.
It's just white? Is that,
Yeah, that's what's on our screens.
may I advance it one to see?
Yeah. All right, there we go. We got it.
Detective, on this, or agent on the screen is what's been marked as A1. What is that?
This is the front entrance to the apartment on Allegheny Avenue.
And which apartment did you process?
We were looking at apartment B,
B as in boy?
B as in boy.
A2? What is this picture of?
This is the front door to the apartment.
Why do you take a picture of the front door?
Typically, I'm looking for signs of forced entry, if there are pry marks around the door jamb, any trace evidence such as blood, hairs. I just want to get a good photograph of the entryway.
Was there any signs of forced entry in this case?
No, there was not.
A3?
This is the opposite side of that front door.
A4?
A closer photograph, again, just trying to document the absence or presence of any type of forced entry.
And agent, could you explain to us, and I'm pointing on the screen, what is that I'm circling in the middle of the picture?
That's the latch for the deadbolt lock.
Was there a lock on the actual knob of the door?
No, there was not.
A5?
This is what I would call the living room. It's the room that you encounter immediately walking through the front door.
A6?
Living room.
And why do you take these different angles?
Just to be able to see other items within the room to give you a different perspective from all angles of what the inside of the room looks like.
A7?
Again, the living room area. This is the floor by the entryway.
Agent, what are those in the left corner?
Those are our gloves. We always make sure to glove up as soon as we enter the residence so we don't contaminate any DNA evidence. So as we were doing our walkthrough, those was the gloves that we sat there.
And I guess I should ask you about that. What procedures do you take, or are you trained to take, to make sure you are not contaminating the scene?
There's a lot of precautions we'll use. Primarily, we use gloves. Sometimes we will wear protective gear if we need to. We always make sure to use clean instruments, sterilized instruments, sterilized placards. We make sure not to talk over items that are potential DNA because we can transfer our DNA and contaminate that sample. So there's a lot of things we do to try to avoid contaminating the crime scene.
A8?
Again, in the living room, this is, I believe, a yoga mat in front of the end table there, or the coffee table.
A9?
This was a purse lying on the floor in the living room, and the contents of the purse appeared to have been dumped out.
And then what's this up here in the middle? Looks like a little box.
That's a French fry box from Arby's. There were some French fries there on the floor. We also found a cup in the house with a straw from Arby's as well.
A10?
Just a different perspective of that coffee table, different angle.
A11?
Again, still in the living room. This is the side of the couch.
A12?
Still in the living room, facing toward that entry door, just a different perspective.
A13?
As you would proceed past the living room, the set of steps that led to the second floor would be on your left. If you continue straight, it would take you into the kitchen.
And what is this door that we see?
There's a small closet there right next to the steps. This is just the door is partially open on the closet.
A14?
Again, I'm walking through the scene. I'm headed toward the kitchen. This is what I encounter as I first step past that entryway to the kitchen itself.
At this point, are you collecting any evidence?
No.
A15?
This is the kitchen floor.
Why would you take a picture of the kitchen floor?
Again, just sometimes to show the absence of things. We didn't see any type of shoe prints. There's no noticeable blood. There really wasn't much on the kitchen floor that was of note.
A16?
This is the kitchen and the counter. Obviously, the refrigerator's on the left.
A17?
Continuing to move through the kitchen, to the left, there's a laundry room that we'll see, I'm sure, in the next picture.
A18?
This would be the rear door, or the entrance to the rear of the apartment. Excuse me.
And again, are the locks the same as the front door?
They are. It has a deadbolt latch and then no actual mechanical lock on the knob itself.
When you arrived, was that deadbolt locked?
It was secured.
A19?
This is a photograph of the laundry room that's off of the kitchen.
A20?
The contents of the floor of the laundry room.
A21?
The top of the washer and dryer.
A22?
So while standing in the laundry room looking back toward the kitchen, this is what you would see.
A23?
To your immediate left is that rear entrance door. So I'm walking back out of the kitchen now, and you can see the table.
So when you're taking these photos, is it a process of how you move through the house?
Generally, on the initial set of photographs, yes. It's just as I walk through the house.
A24?
The inside of the refrigerator.
Is there a lot of food in that refrigerator?
Not a lot of food, no. Mostly condiments and beverages.
A25?
Contents of the freezer.
And again, why are you taking pictures of the fridge and the freezer?
Just to show that we looked inside to see what's in there. We have found things in the refrigerator or the freezer before.
Okay. A26?
This would be the kitchen's trash can, the contents of the kitchen trash.
And again, why are you taking pictures of a trash can?
Just to illustrate what was inside of the trash can itself.
A27?
This is the base of the steps that lead to the second floor.
And Agent, on the walls here going up the stairs, what were those?
I believe those were just small canvas paintings or pictures.
A28?
So after walking to the top of the steps and turning around, this is a vantage point looking down the steps.
A29?
So at the top of the steps, if you would turn right, you'd encounter a bathroom. So this is a hallway that extends to the bathroom and then a secondary bedroom.
And then if you can tell, what is this on the wall?
Just another picture, I think on canvas backing.
I'm actually gonna back up now to A27. Do you recall, was that a picture as well?
I'm not sure. I think it was, but I don't think I could testify 100% that that was a picture.
A30?
So this is the doorway to the bathroom.
A31?
The bathroom sink and the what was on the floor.
A32?
Another photograph of the bathroom.
A33?
This would be the shower inside the bathroom.
A34?
The basin of the shower itself.
Why do you take a picture of the basin of the shower?
Again, looking to see if we have any diluted blood or anything of evidentiary value. I did not see anything of evidentiary value in the basin of the tub.
A35?
This would be an open container of Clorox wipes on top of the toilet itself.
Why did you take a picture of those?
Sometimes in crime scenes, we have people that try to clean themselves up. So this was examined later for blood. We visually looked at it. We didn't see anything of value there, but if we would have indications that a crime scene cleanup or the scene was altered, things like Clorox wipes could be relevant to the investigation.
A36?
This is the threshold of the main bedroom where the victim was located.
A37?
Just another photograph showing the doorway of that bedroom.
A38?
A photograph of the bedroom where the victim was located.
Now, at this point, have you touched anything in the bedroom?
No.
A39?
This would be the right side of the bedroom as you walk in.
A40?
This photograph shows back toward the closet where ultimately we located the victim.
A41?
This is the bed inside the bedroom.
A42?
This was a reddish brown stain that we found on the floor and the carpeting just forward of the foot of the bed.
Why'd you take a picture of that?
To me, visually, it looked like it could be blood. And we tested it later to confirm presumptively that it was. But when I walked in, this was immediately noticeable, so I took a photograph of it.
A43?
Just another photograph of the bed. Again, just forward of the foot of the bed, you can see that reddish brown stain on the floor.
Is it where my laser pointer is pointing right next to it? Looks to be a ball of clothes, maybe?
Yes, that's it.
A44?
So this would be to your immediate left when you walked into the bedroom. There was a dresser along the wall.
A45?
This is what we observed on the floor as we approached the closet.
Now, Agent, what do you do when there's clothing and potential evidence all over the floor? How do you get to where you need to get to?
In this case, we take a systematic approach where we will, once we have our overall photos, we will start to examine individual items, determine if they are of value or not, evidentiary value or not. If they're not, they get moved to one location. If we feel that they're relevant, then we'll collect them. So we try to clear the area as we approach as much as we can.
Go back in layers almost?
Essentially, yes.
A46?
Another photograph of the closet and the closet door. You can see the victim lying on the floor next to the pillow.
A47?
Just another photograph from above of what we observed on the floor out in front of the closet.
A48?
So specifically with this iron, I noticed that it is knotted. You can see on the left side of the photograph. Also appears to be some suspected blood up near the plug itself. So this was something I wanted to get a better picture of even at the onset of the scene processing.
Agent, I think there should be a laser pointer up
Okay.
there, correct?
Sure.
So if
Yep.
you ever want to point up there, just go ahead and do that, help
Okay.
explain. So where did you say this knot was that caught your attention?
So the knot is located right here, which seemed a bit unusual to me. And then we had what appears to be suspected blood on the plug.
A49?
Closer photograph. In this picture, you can't see it very well. I think there's better photographs, but it appears as though there's hair intermixed with that knot, intertwined with a knot.
A50?
A close-up photograph of the plug where you can see the suspected blood.
A51?
So the cord itself from the iron appeared to be cut. It was knotted and it was all in one piece, but there was a cut in the cord as well around the knot. You can see it right there.
And you said cut. Does it look like it's a pretty clean cut?
Yeah, a relatively clean cut. I don't think this was pulled apart. I mean, I think it was cut.
A52?
On the exterior knob of the closet door, we had the control unit to a heating blanket, and it was hanging there along with, I believe these were black leggings. So the cord was wrapped multiple times around the knob. This cord extended to the other side and was ultimately found to be wrapped around the victim's head, or the victim's neck.
A53?
So we were able to move in a little closer to get a few photographs of the victim herself, and this is what we were able to see.
And so what's the angle of this photo?
From the top down, so I'm above the victim taking a photograph.
A54?
This is another photograph of the door. You can see the cord extends from the control unit around and is wrapped around, partially wrapped around the knob. And then there's also, the door itself was split in the area of the knob.
So to split in the area of the knob?
Yeah, it was split. You can see here, right there in the knob, the latch area.
So could the door close?
Later, we were able to close the door, but the door would not stay closed. It would not latch. It appeared as though the knob on this side had been pushed into the material of the door.
A55?
At the very top of the closet door, we observed this damage up here. So it was photographed.
Why was that of significance to you?
At the time, we were uncertain if the cord possibly had originally been up over top of the door. I took some measurements, and it's consistent with the width of the door. I can't say conclusively that it's a match, but we took photos of that just to document that was a possibility.
A56?
And again, just another photograph of the door backing out so you can see the damage at the very top.
A57?
So once we've documented the scene through our initial photography, we will begin to start collecting items of evidence. We will search and collect. At that time, we will introduce yellow placards typically with numbers on them. And that's how we identify our evidence. So item one, we went through the trash, and this is out of the kitchen. So this is the kitchen trash. We went through and found 3 receipts that we decided to collect.
Why collect receipts, Agent?
I wanted the receipts collected because sometimes we look at credit card, or the investigators want to look at credit card information. So if we see receipts, they tell us a lot of information. They tell us, date, time, location, and if they paid with a credit card, sometimes we can get the last 4 or 5 numbers of that card. That can be helpful to detectives.
A58?
Just a closer photograph of those receipts.
A59?
So going back to the living room, we're processing the first floor. There are a lot of items there in the area of the coffee table that were of interest to us. So this photograph is just kind of an overall photograph with placards inserted to give you an idea of what we were collecting.
Actually, I'm gonna kind of back to the kitchen if I may.
Sure.
So I know that we're here at the trash can. We had pictures before of the doorknob from the interior of the back kitchen. You took blind swabs, you have noted in your report.
Yes.
What are blind swabs?
So blind swabs are, we will use hydrated sterile swabs. We call them blind swabs because we're looking for something that we can't see. Specifically in this case, we're looking for skin cells or epithelial cells. And that's what we relate to touch DNA. So we shed skin cells constantly. Some people shed more than others. But we're looking at areas that people would routinely have contact with. A perfect example in this case is doorknobs, deadbolt latches. Those are areas that we have to touch, and it's potential that somebody's skin cells could have been deposited there. So we collect blind swabs. And all it is again, a hydrated sterile swab. We swab over the area that we're interested in and package that up, and then our laboratory can look at them to see if there's a DNA profile.
And I believe, and you can refer to your report if you need to refresh your recollection, but you swabbed the interior doorknob, the interior deadbolt, and the exterior doorknob.
That's correct.
The same process each time?
Yes.
So back to A59. We have a lot of, you said, evidence placards here?
Yes.
Okay. How do you determine what to collect for evidence?
Again, every case is unique. In this situation, I'm trying to identify who was in the apartment, whether it was her and somebody, or who the other person was. So we're looking at DNA items. So for instance, item number 2 is a Swisher Sweet pack. I know somebody would have had to touch that, somebody would have left it there. So we're interested in knowing who that was. So that's an item, a great example of something we collect for potential DNA, maybe fingerprints, things like that.
And don't worry, we'll go over all those things you collected later.
Sure.
A60?
This is just an overhead photograph of that coffee table to better illustrate what placarded items we were collecting.
A61?
All of these photographs will likely have what's called a close-up photograph, and that's just a picture from top down. It gives you an idea of what number 2 was, and you can see the detail that it was a Swisher Sweet pack.
A62?
Number 3 is on its side, but it's a placarded photo of a cell phone that we found on the coffee table. You can see that there were things that were displayed on the screen that I was able to document through photography as well.
A63?
I took a series of photographs scrolling up on that lock screen to document what the messages were. There were several photographs of those.
Why is it important to you to document the messages?
It's relevant to the investigation. The detectives are certainly interested in that. Who was communicating with that phone? It also lists a time, like 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago, or a specific time. So that can all be relevant to an investigation.
A64?
Another photograph of just, again, I'm scrolling down through all of these notifications on the phone to document them.
And Agent, what is this paper that's been behind?
That's just a manila envelope that I use as a backdrop to make the photograph a little less busy, easier to see.
A65?
Additional photographs of the lock screen notifications.
A66?
Additional lock screen messages.
And A67?
And again, more messages on the lock screen.
Connor, if I could have the lights really quick.
May.
Can I approach? Agent, I'm gonna ask, I know it's a little bit hard to read. Could you tell, ladies and gentlemen, the jury, what the, I know it's a little bit difficult,
That's okay.
what the first missed phone call, who it's from, and about what time it is?
There is a missed phone call from, it looks like Haley Kennedy. It's a missed call and a voicemail.
Excuse me,
And
what exhibit are you?
I apologize, A67.
so it's Haley Kennedy, and It's a little blurry, but I believe it's 8:50 p.m.
Thank you. Thank you. I forgot the lights again. And the date for that, was this at the very bottom of the scrolling?
Yes,
Okay, so would that have been the day before at 8:50 p.m.?
I believe so, yes.
A68?
On top of that coffee table, I collected a cigar butt, a partially burnt cigar butt.
A69?
There was a coffee mug. Again, it's a great source of prints and DNA. Collected as item 5.
A70?
A medium range photograph showing items 6, 7, and 9 items from the coffee table.
A71?
6 was a Arby's drinking cup and straw.
And then what is this here in the middle of the photo, if you can tell?
I believe that's a ketchup packet.
And it's opened?
Yes.
A72?
Item number 6, just a close-up photograph of the Arby's cup and straw.
A73?
There were multiple, cigarette and cigar butts on top of that coffee table. They were all kind of together, so they were just packaged as one item, number 7.
A74?
This is item number 8 from the coffee table. It's a glass smoking pipe.
A75?
I began searching through the contents of the purse that were on the floor, that were overturned, and they were all put back into the purse, and its contents were collected as item 10.
Did you find any debit or credit cards in that purse?
No.
A76?
2 receipts that were found in the area with the contents of the purse. It's just a photograph.
A77?
So between the edge of the couch and that wall inside the living room, item number 11, I believe was a computer, a laptop computer.
A78?
This is just a closer photograph of that. The computer's inside of that multicolored bag.
A79?
And this is a photograph of the computer itself.
You've taken it out at that point.
Yes.
A80?
The Ohio driver's license of Rachael Anderson that was found with the contents of that purse.
Why did you take a picture of her ID?
Helpful for me when I write reports. It's just every purse that I encounter, I'm going to take a picture of the ID, see who's inside there, possibly who it belongs to.
A81?
This is the outside of the apartment. This is the back side. So this would be the rear entryway that leads into the kitchen.
Did you see any signs of forced entry on that door?
No.
A82?
So turning left from that back door, this extends to a parking area in the apartment complex itself.
A83?
A closer photograph of the back door.
A84?
And just like on the front, I'm taking a closer photograph of the knob and the lock. Again, no signs of forced entry here.
A85?
So this is the interior side of the front entrance door. I was told that multiple people had checked on her throughout the day, some of which was law enforcement that did use gloves, but some were private citizens that didn't use gloves. So it's not really a good DNA area for me, but latent fingerprints was another technique that we could use. So this is just a photograph after I had dusted the back of the door for fingerprints.
Could you explain how you dust for fingerprints or what that process is?
Sure. We will look visually on a surface to see if we can see a print. If we can see them, they're called patent prints. If they're not visible, they're called latent prints. We have a variety of techniques to include magnetic powder and volcanic ash, and there's other methods we can use. This was volcanic ash, and we just use a brush to apply it. We dust the surface, and the dust would adhere to the ridge detail sometimes of latent prints, develop them, make them visible to the eye, and then we can take photographs, and we can ultimately lift them and collect them as an item of evidence.
And then do you look through the fingerprints yourself, or do you send them to somebody else?
No, we send them to the laboratory. A fingerprint examiner will evaluate those.
Have you lifted prints before that have been of great value?
Yes,
Have you lifted prints that have not been of great value?
yes.
Is it hard to tell once you're out there?
If we have ridge detail, if we can see something inside the print, generally we will collect that. But we're not, evaluating the quality of a print is outside of our expertise. So if we just collect them and send them in and let the lab determine if they can be used.
So if you see any ridge detail, you'll collect it.
Yes,
And have you been trained to do that?
yes.
A86?
So this is LP, stands for latent prints. That's how we identify areas. So this is LP1. You can see 3 very dark areas in the center. I just circled that within the dust to highlight where it was located. So this would be the first set of prints I collected from the door.
A87?
Latent print 2. Again, you can see a series of what looks like fingerprints there on the door. And latent print 3.
And that's on A88.
I'm sorry?
For the record, that's A88.
Oh, okay.
So what do you do once you've dusted, you've identified them, then what do you do? How do you collect them?
We will evaluate the surface. Smooth, clean surfaces such as glass, we can typically collect with tape, fingerprint tape. This was a porous surface, the backside of the door. So we'll use something called Accutrans. It's a casting material. It's much like silicone. We can apply that to the print, let it dry for a few minutes, and then we can pull it and it takes the print with it. So these were lifted with Accutrans casting.
A89?
So now we're back to the second floor. This is the secondary bedroom.
Was there much in this bedroom?
There was not, no.
A90?
This is an empty closet within that bedroom.
A91?
So continuing back to the main bedroom where the victim was located, we had previously talked about that red stain on the floor, and a sample of that was collected as item 15.
A92?
This is a closer photograph of that stain.
A93?
When we encounter a stain that we think is blood, we have a field test that we can use. It's called tetramethylbenzidine, or TMB for short.
I'm gonna ask you to slow down,
I'm
because I
sorry.
think our court reporter just tried to spell that word and her fingers almost fell off. So what is this called again?
Tetramethylbenzidine,
And what's the way shorter way to say it?
TMB,
Okay.
TMB.
And so what is this test?
So TMB is a presumptive chemical test for blood. It reacts with the hemoglobin in the blood, and if it's positive, if it detects hemoglobin, then there's a color change, a very noticeable color change. So it's essentially a colorless chemical. You apply it, and then it turns this kind of a green-blue color very quickly.
A94?
At this point, we're starting to move things out, clear out some of those clothes to work our way to the victim. And this is a photograph of some of the items that I want to collect as evidence.
A95?
This is an overhead photograph. There's a brown leather, I guess, case or satchel here, and then there's the iron that we previously talked about. There's a surge protector, surge protector here, and then an ironing board. And this is to the left of the bed.
A96?
This is a better photograph of that cord. You can see the cuts, and you can also see what appears to be hair wound within the knot itself.
A97?
This is an ironing board sitting next to the bed, and then there's a leather strap here, and then another strap of some type.
A98?
This is the surge protector, or I guess the cord itself.
So when you're taking these photos and collecting evidence, do you go big picture to little picture?
Yes, we go from medium range to close up.
A99?
Again, a better photograph over top of the victim. I'm above her taking a photograph downward.
A100?
This is the bottom portion of the victim's body.
And what was this that was over top of her?
So she was wrapped partially in this white sheet or more like a comforter or a blanket. So that is this area right here. There's a curling iron here that's actually wrapped around her ankles.
So this curling iron that looks like it's kind of touching the middle of the blanket is actually wrapped around her ankles?
Actually, there's a blue hair dryer. The cord of that is wrapped multiple times, binding her ankles together, binding her feet together. The cord of the iron was used to hog tie. So it was wrapped through the ligatures on her ankles and up around what we found, ligatures around her arms. So the iron itself was used to hog tie with.
A101?
This is a red blanket that was found on the floor at the foot of the bed.
A102?
Just a closer photograph of that blanket.
A103?
There were a variety of things on the bed. In a situation like this, I want to take all of the contents of the bed. So this just illustrates what was taken. 16 was the bed sheet. We have a pillow and a couple other blankets there. Those were all collected individually as items of evidence.
104?
That's just a blanket on the bed, item 18.
105?
Again, just a blanket on the bed, 19.
106?
20 is the pillow.
And then A107?
On the bed sheet, item number 16, again, some reddish brown stains that appeared like they could be bloods. They were suspected blood, so I just wanted to take a better photograph of that to illustrate where we saw it.
In your training, do you have a certain name for these kind of blood stains?
Yes.
What is that?
These would be categorized as transfer stains. Transfer stain is somewhat of a generic term, just meaning a blood-bearing surface has contact with another surface.
A108?
On the floor between the edge of the bed and that wall, there were a few items that were collected as evidence. There was
A109?
and there were a pair of glasses also that were collected.
A110?
Collected those all as one item, sat them up, and took a photograph of them. Collected them as item 21.
A111?
The placard with 15, the stain on the floor. Sometimes if there's question about the type of blood stain it is, I'll cut the carpeting back and look at it. What I'm looking for is to try to differentiate between a transfer stain, as I just mentioned, or what's called a saturation stain. A saturation stain is when blood passes into an absorbent material. So when I cut the carpeting back, I can see that we have blood on the opposite side, so on the bottom material of the carpet. So this is not a transfer stain. This isn't just blood on an object that rubbed across the carpet. This is blood there was enough volume there that it soaked into the carpet and actually passed through there onto the back side.
And what was that called, a saturation
It's called,
stain?
yes, it's called a saturation stain.
A112?
As you've previously seen, these items were of interest, so a medium range photograph along with the placards of the items that I'm collecting.
A113?
Item 22 is the iron.
A114?
Item 23 is that black leather case.
A115?
The leather strap on the left and then this white cord was collected as item 24.
A116?
This is the power strip, or I guess what I refer to as the surge protector. I guess it's power strip.
Okay. A117?
So I just took a piece of butcher paper. It's just clean brown paper to make the photograph a little easier to see, and took a photograph of the iron itself. And again, you can see where it's cut. You can see the knot in it as well. And again, there's blood around the cord portion.
A118?
A closer photograph of the knot. You can see what we believe to be his hair. There's also a small stain of suspected blood there on the cord.
Is the hair actually entwined in the knot from what you can tell?
Yes.
A119?
Again, a closer photograph of that plug, that has suspected blood on it.
A120?
23 is just a closer photograph of the brown leather case.
A121?
This is a placarded and scaled photograph of a couple blood stains that I observed on the leather case itself. This stain in the upper left-hand corner didn't interest me much, but this one here in the lower left is what I believe to be a spatter stain.
Could you explain what a spatter stain is?
Sure. So a spatter stain is just another type of blood stain, but this is something that's created through force and it's in flight. Can't tell exactly how it was created or what mechanism was used, but I know that there was blood that was airborne. When it's airborne and it hits a surface, it creates a shape like that. So it's not a transfer stain, it's not a saturation stain, it's blood in flight.
A122?
This is item number 24, again, the two straps that I found next to the bed.
Agent, is that a strap or is that a belt, or are you not up with women's fashion?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it could be a belt, I suppose. I don't know.
You call it a strap?
A strap, yeah, it's a generic term.
A123?
What did interest me, though, is in regard to item 24, is that this strap or belt appeared to be cut.
And that was of significance to you?
Yes.
A124?
This is, again, the belt or the strap, item 24, but there was also a small amount of hair wound up in it as well.
A125?
A photograph of the power strip. If you look closely here, there are some transfer stains of blood.
You said transfer stains?
Yes, ma'am.
A126?
Another close-up photograph of that cord from the power strip. And again, if you look very closely, you can see suspected blood transfer.
Now, when you have transfer stains, can you always tell what it was transferred from?
No, no.
A127?
A closer photograph of the power strip.
A128?
This is a photograph of the carpeting. Once we had all those items collected and removed, I wanted to show a photograph after everything was gone.
And Agent, what is this? Almost looks like a line that goes kind of through the middle of the picture.
Sure. There were ultimately, we did some additional testing of stains on the floor in that area, and we located some additional stains that tested positive for blood.
And just for record, those kind of go from the bottom of the picture and lead toward the closet?
Yes.
A129?
It's an overall photograph of the area where we saw some additional staining on that carpet.
The color a little bit off up there on the overhead. Doesn't really look that.
It's hard to see with the naked eye. These were, because of the color of the carpeting, it wasn't as evident.
A130?
These are swabs that I laid down next to two areas that I tested. And again, the swabs have changed color, presumptively positive for blood.
Using the TMD?
The TMB test, yes.
A131?
Just a closer photograph of those swabs. You can see the color change.
A132?
There was a pink pillow, a large pink pillow between the door and the victim's head. It was collected as item 26.
A133?
So after removing the pillow, we were able to get a little closer to the victim. You can see the cord that was wrapped around her neck, as well as the white fabric that was wrapped or knotted around her face and her head.
And what kind of goes through that white fabric?
That's the cord. The cord was like one full rotation and then knotted around her neck.
Okay, the cord was, you said one full rotation?
Yes, it was completely wrapped around and then knotted.
And then what is this also around her neck?
We worked with the coroner's investigator when they were on scene, and later, as we were able to get her out of the closet and start removing some of these items, this was a piece of material wrapped around her head, and part of it was stuffed into her mouth.
And would you classify these stains as saturation stains?
They are, yes.
134?
As we were able to get the door of the closet opened a little further, we were able to get some more pictures of her.
Now, is the cord still connected to her at this point?
I believe so, yes.
A135?
There was a transfer stain here at the base of the door. I guess technically I would categorize it as a pattern stain. The pattern, if you look closely, is consistent with the pattern of that t-shirt, the fabric material. So again, it's just blood going from one surface to another. This one left just a little bit of a pattern stain.
So in your training and experience, how would that pattern stain have got onto that door?
Her head's right there by the door. So at some point, I believe the bloody material from the fabric over top of her head came in contact with the inside of that door.
A136?
So we're not able to, at the time, we're not able to disconnect this cord in any way. So it's still affixed to the front side of the knob. We have to get her out of this closet to look at her some more. We have to cut the cord, and in this situation, I was able to put tape on each side of it. That way we know where the cuts are, and then I was able to cut the cord.
And then are these your initials?
Correct. Those are just my initials.
And then what's the significance of the numbers?
I believe 27 is item 27. I think that's what the cord in the control unit was collected as. So it's just side A and side B.
A137?
Closer photograph of the doorknob and the cord that was wrapped around it. This really illustrates that the fact that the door was split, had splintered there in that area of the knob.
And splintered in towards the closet?
It appeared as though, yes, it had tilted inward so that the weight would have been on the outside, potentially pulling, dropping the inside down a little low. Because it was pushed in, the material was pushed in more on the inside over here, around the knob. There's probably a better photograph of that.
Hopefully we put it in. So tell me more about the cord that's wrapped around the outside doorknob.
It's just, as you can see, it's just wrapped repeatedly around that knob. And in the middle of all that there's this black material. I think they were leggings that were somehow wrapped around the knob as well.
Was this easy to unwrap?
No, it was wrapped tight, and it was wrapped multiple times around that knob. So it took, a minute or two to get that all unwoven and collected.
A138?
That's a photograph of the cord being removed with the black material, and that's what the knob looked like once we had it removed.
A139?
Just laying, again, all that, the cord, the control unit, the legging, everything that we took off that exterior side knob, laid it out on paper and took a photograph of it.
A140?
So once we were able to disconnect the cord, cut it, we were able to get her out and place her onto a body bag. And again, we're doing this with the Franklin County Coroner's investigator.
And did you have to cut any more cords to get her out, or did you remove her after cutting that one cord from the doorknob?
Yes, cutting that one cord, then we were able to get her out.
And I know we kind of talked a little bit earlier about, so explain to me again how this all connects for the hog-tie.
Sure. So the hairdryer, the cord from the hairdryer is wrapped repeatedly around the ankles. Very intricately, and it's knotted, and it's very tight. The curling iron cord is wrapped between the hairdryer cord up through and over the wrists. And again, it's tied off and knotted up around the curling iron. Again, very tight, intricate set. And then we have a set of ligatures. I mean, there's a blind cord we later determined from the blinds in the room, as well as like some belting material. I think that actually was a belt with a buckle, and it's used to bind the hands. So hopefully this makes sense, but the hairdryer and the cord was used to bind her feet, her ankles. She was bound at the hands, and then the curling iron connects everything together to hog-tie her.
A141?
So we're just we did our best to just document how this all interrelated and intertwined. So this, you can see the cord from the curling iron goes around these ligatures and then back to the feet.
And you say you did your best. Was this an easy job to do?
No, it was very, it was hard to understand what was connecting what and how she was exactly bound up. There was everything was very tight, and there was a lot of knots, and it was intricate.
A142.
We collected the blanket that was partially wrapping her body as item 28.
And again, is this kind of a side view of how that all interconnected?
Yes.
A143.
Again, just trying to take photographs to visually document how things were wrapped around and knotted and looped through.
A144.
Additional photographs of the knots from the feet, ankle, leg ligatures.
And then tell me about this part of the cord here over to the right.
Sure. Yeah, this cord over here appears as though it's been cut. It's a pretty clean edge there.
A145.
This is item 29, and this is the cords. Actually, I'm sorry. Can we go back one photograph? This photograph, this cut actually may be attributed to me, because I do remember we had to start making cuts to get the ligatures off. So this one wasn't marked. This could have been a result of my cut. Sorry.
You say that you had to start cutting. Did you attempt to, again, untie her?
Yes, there was no way. There was absolutely no way we could have taken all of this apart.
So A145 is everything that you had taken from?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I believe, again, this is the curling iron. I believe that's my cut.
Okay.
That's how we were able to unloop the curling iron.
Excuse me, Ms. Van Coolen, counsel, please approach. Excuse us one moment, ladies and gentlemen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and break for lunch. I'd like you back in the jury room, if possible, at right around 1:15. Okay, 1:15. Again, remember the admonitions that I've given you with respect to discussing this case among yourselves or with anyone else. All rise for the jury. All right, may be seated, everyone. I'll see you after lunch. You don't have to sit.
No, if you guys stay at the line, you guys sit there. You can be back around like 1:15.